Oh, a very good morning to you. Many thanks for joining us for the first program, the first sports program of the week, Sports Today on ABS TV, a regular morning tonic on this dial. Good to have you on the show. My name is Ike Nwokede, and a whole lot went down in the world of sports at the weekend. The World Cup fever are now engulfed everyone. The World Cup are kick-started, and that was on Sunday to be precise. We had the first match of the World Cup. We saw a colorful opening ceremony and climaxed with the first match on the show. We'll talk about that and many other stories regarding the World Cup. We also put our focus on grassroots sports with a special focus on football. We'll go to Onitsha and tell you about the Onitsha Unity Cup. We'll also be talking about the Anambra Independent Football League, the AIFL. It commenced on Friday with the first match of the new season kickstarting. We'll tell you about that on the sports show. Also, we will go ahead to talk about the 21st edition of the National Sports Festival. Yesterday was historic for Anambra State sports followers and athletes and officials of the Anambra State Sports Development Commission as the Unity Torch arrived in Awka, the capital of Anambra State. Well, let's begin with our first story, which is about the Unity Torch, the Torch of Unity, you may want to call it. Yesterday, it arrived Awka, the capital of Anambra State. And the festival torch on Sunday arrived in Anambra to a warm reception of His Excellency Governor Chukwuma Soludo ahead of the National Sports Festival, the NSF, built for Asaba. Soludo, who was represented by his deputy, Dr. Onyekachi Ibezim, of course, I was on hand to receive that. Patrick Onyedum, chairman, Anambra State Sports Development Commission, received the torch from Onyedum. They received the torch, and then I've handed the torch over to the deputy governor. Yes, he had earlier received the torch from the director of sports for the ministry, in the person, or director of sports for the commission, the person of Faith Ohon. And speaking at the event, Ibezim said Anambra was fully committed to the festival and would be in Asaba, Delta State capital, to compete for sporting glory. He assured that coaches and athletes in the contingent will be given adequate support to succeed in that one. He said that Soludo views sports with all seriousness due to his love for sports. The team will get our full support, and Mr. Governor takes sports seriously because of its importance in the development of our youth and impact of the economy. We are a sports-loving state with wonderful sportsmen and women like Emmanuel Okala, Mary Onyale, and many others. He stated. Amaka Ashiofo, a deputy director in the Ministry of Sports, who led the team, thanked an Anambra government for accepting to be part of the National Sports Festival. Ashiofo urged the governor to provide the necessary support for the team and advised the athletes to go for medals and be of good conduct as to ensure the government do send them to competitions in the near future. There was a road of the torch in the streets of Awka before it arrived Alex Ekwueme Square. Yes, the movement was from the temporary side down to Alex Ekwueme Square, and also the climax of the occasion was a display, kung fu display by Coach Okorosa, led tutors. We had the likes of Chia Gozie Ndukwe, gold medalist at the National Youth Games, performing alongside his crew in front of the Deputy Governor of Anambra State. So it was quite a historic moment for sports in Anambra State. The Unity Torch has arrived, signifying oneness, signifying the readiness for Delta State to host the National Sports Festival. And it also signifies that Team Anambra will be part of the story at the National Sports Festival, expected to commence on the 28th of November and down to December 10th. And yours sincerely will try to be there to give you up, to bring you up to speed with events that will happen at the National Sports Festival, happening from the 28th of November down to December 5th. So Anambra State are ready, and the officials are ready. The athletes, I believe, are equally ready for the showpiece. It is the biggest sporting program in Nigeria. It is the National Sports Festival, and all is now set for Anambra State to participate in that one. I will move on now to our second story, which is about the Sports Writers Association of Nigeria. Yes, the Sports Writers Association of Nigeria Swan paid a courtesy call to the chairman, Anambra State Sports Development Commission, Patrick Onyedum, and that man said that the state contingent to the National Sports Festival would do its best at the event. Onyedum said this during an interaction with the members of the Sports Writers Association of Nigeria in Awka on Friday. Onyedum, who assumed office in October, however, said they were not under desperate drive for medals or immediate glory. He said his vision was to evolve a new generation of sports champions through a comprehensive and aggressive grassroots development program. The chairman said that the state would compete in Asaba, and that teams we are preparing. We will be in Asaba and we will do our best, but we are not under pressure. Onyedum stated, we are working with the existing program for the new commission. Under my watch, we are working on a long-term grassroots sports development strategy that will produce the next generation of our champions. Onyedum stated, the new commissioner, the new chairman of the Youth and Anambra State Sports Development Commission decried the poor state of public-owned sports facilities in Anambra State and emphasized the need to bring them back to good shape. He called on sports writers to collaborate with the Sports Commission positively for the overall good of athletes and the sports sector. In his remark, Anthony Oji, chairman of SWAN in Anambra State, said they were happy with Onyedum's appointment and expressed their confidence in his ability to turn sports around in Anambra State. Oji commended the chairman for his long-term development program, which included the revival of school sports, and urged Governor Chukwuma Soludo to fund the sector for effective execution of the initiative. He said the Sports Writers Association of Nigeria, SWAN, Anambra State chapter, was willing to work with the Anambra State Sports Development Commission and enable the commission to succeed. Other speakers at the event were the Chigozie Chukwuleta, Vice President of SWAN Southeast, and Philip Balebo, a veteran sports journalist, as well as the vice chairman of the Sports Writers Association of Nigeria, Anambra State chapter, in the person of Mr. Dan Obai. So that was a courtesy call by the Sports Writers Association of Nigeria. Going to see the chairman, Anambra State Sports Development Commission. It was a courtesy call, and the chairman made some promises there to take sports to the next level, and he said he was going to work with a critical stakeholder in the form of the Sports Writers Association of Nigeria. I think that's the way to go, and they will give him all the enabling support they can in reporting all the events of the Anambra State Sports Development Commission under the leadership of Honorable Patrick Estate Onyedum. So SWAN now collaborating effectively with the sports right with the Anambra State Sports Development Commission. In the days ahead, we'll get to know more about the activities and how SWAN will play a pivotal role in its coverage, and they are saddled with the responsibility of reportage for sports in the state and beyond. And now we'll move away from that. Let's talk about grassroots football. Focus on the Anambra Independent Football League, the AIFL, started on Friday, the 18th of November 2022. The Anambra Independent Football League Season 7 kick-started on Friday, the 18th of November 2022. In the first match played at the Awka City Stadium, Peace FC engaged the Santa Maria of Okpoko in Onitsha. And it may interest you to know that Peace FC obliterated Santa Maria by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 goals to nil. What a match. What a story, and what an entrance for Santa Maria. And they were given not the kind of welcome they wanted. Peace FC destroying Santa Maria in the first match, 5 goals to nil. He ended. Goal scorers, Ebuka Okoye scored in the first minute of the game. The second goal came through Leonard Agoma in the 7th minute of the game. Thomas Kelechi was also on the score sheet. He got a brace for himself. Thomas Kelechi scored in the 20th minute of the game, and he also scored from the spot in the 53rd minute of the game, while Collins Ume put an icing on the cake when he scored in the 78th minute of the game to put the 3 points fully in the Akiti. 3 points, 5 goals for Peace FC in the opener of the Anambra Independent Football League. And I have to tell you what a test it is for Santa Maria. And of course, in the aftermath of that, the team manager said they will have to go back to the drawing board. This is something much more serious, and they have to prepare adequately for this season, the Anambra Independent Football League, the AIFL, which started on Friday. And remember, that day was just one match I played because it was the season opener. We'll have the day one extra of the Anambra Independent Football League. And actually, we'll continue with match day one programs. The 3 matches not played on the first day will now be played this Friday. On Friday, Dosad Football Club of Enugu, who is expected to take on GP World Football Academy of that GP World Football Academy of that's Nnewi by 9 a.m. Mekong will take on Obeledu United, while Rangers will take on Cardinal Arinze FC. So that's it for Anambra Independent Football League. Now let's move on to our third story now, which is on your screen, and it's about, or rather our fourth story, which is on your screen, and it's all about the Onitsha Unity Cup. We told you of which commenced some weeks back. Yes, the Onitsha Unity Cup action continues at the ongoing Onitsha Unity Cup bankrolled by Onitsha ex-footballers in diaspora, and 16 clubs featuring in the maiden edition of this football championship holding at the Godwin Achebe Stadium, Fege, and the Chuba Ipazu Stadium, Onitsha. The winner of this competition is expected to smile home with a sum of 1 million naira. Runners-up will go home with 500,000 naira, and top place team is expected to smile home with a sum of 300,000 naira. There are also other individual prizes such as the most valuable player, the best goalkeeper, the best behaved team, and all that during the final day of the Onitsha Unity Cup competition, which will come to an end later. We hear it is going to happen later. That's early in the new year, 7th of January. We hear, and let's bring you up to speed with what is happening as regards that. On Friday, let's tell you that Olive Charles FA lost 0-1 to Mourinho FC. Global FC of Onitsha played out a goalless draw with Ado Babes also from Onitsha. Those were the results of matches that played on Friday. On Saturday, Golden Boys FC defeated Ndokama by 2-1. And on Sunday, Superstars FA lost 1-4 to Michael FC, and that's in Group A, I believe, while Galaxy FC defeated Mourinho by 2-0. I think it's safe to say that Superstars FC are already out of the competition. You recall that in the first match of the Onitsha Unity Cup, they lost to Peace FC by 2-0. And now they've lost to Michael FC by 4-1. And their last game should be against Ozala FC. And Ozala FC on fire and in the form of their life. And you know, Ozala FC was a team that finished as runners-up. They just concluded Remy Uche Soccer Challenge in Onitsha, where they played at the Gods FC in the finals of that one. And they also won this year's edition of the Youth Fund Cup in the state. So Superstars FC, well, I think their time is up now in this competition, and maybe next year they will have opportunity to compete again for the Onitsha Unity Cup, and that should be for the second edition of that championship. This is the maiden edition, and it's been bankrolled by Onitsha ex-footballers in diaspora. We'll move away from that. Let's talk about Sunday Olisa, former Super Eagles captain and one-time coach of the Super Eagles. And Coach Sunday Olisa has singled out 2 countries that will apply their trade in Qatar and also fly high the flag of Africa in Qatar. Olisa says that the 2022 World Cup is a landmark tournament for African football because all 5 African qualifiers are coached by Africans. He sees Senegal and Morocco as particularly strong, and it will be interesting to see whether Morocco can produce their unique combination of a European, African, and Middle Eastern playing style when it really counts. Those were the words of Sunday Olisa. So He's picking Senegal and Morocco as two teams that will do the needful the upgoing global football mundial. So we'll be watching out for that, and let's see what those countries will do. And Senegal will start their quest today. We'll tell you more about that during the time for when we'll talk about the World Cup. And still on World Cup matters, well, let's tell you that Senegal forward Sadio Mane has had surgery on his knee, injured during a game before the World Cup while playing for his team at Bayern Munich, and that man is expected to be ruled out from the global football mundial. And of course, we heard that he went under the knife on Tuesday, and Senegal said he will miss the first games of the tournament, but a further MRI scan on Thursday showed an operation was needed. Mane, 30 years of age, has suffered the injury during Bayern Munich's win over Werder Bremen, and that was on the 8th of November. And Bayern said that he had successful surgery on Thursday to attach a tendon to the head of his right fibula. And Senegal manager Aliou Cissé has decided to keep Sadio Mane on the original squad list. And Senegal starts their World Cup Group A campaign against Netherlands this Monday. They play host to Qatar on Friday and Ecuador, and that's coming up on the 28th of November. So it looks like Sadio Mane may not be part of the Senegal squad for the Teranga Lions squad for this World Cup, as he has gone under the knife and to fix a problem he's having with his right fibula. Quite an awful time for him to get injured, but we wish him all the very best, and let's hope he will be there to offer some form of moral support to the Teranga Lions as they start their quest later today against the Orange of Netherlands. And still talking football, England's Bukayo Saka funds operations for Nigeria children, and England international Bukayo Saka, we hear, has teamed up with a charity organization to fund 120 life-changing surgical operations for children in the city of Kano. The 21-year-old Arsenal winger, born in London to Nigerian parents, says he wants to have a positive impact in a country which he feels he feels that is dear to him and a country of his birth. And the 21-year-old was born in London to Nigerian parents. Says he wants to have a positive impact in a country which he feels are very connected to. Those were the words of Bukayo Saka. The operations that took place in mid-October, helping children with the range of health issues including inguinal hernias, umbilical hernias, and brain tumors. And Saka teamed up with a Big Shoe, a charity which had helped more than 1,750 children around the world in need of life-changing medical surgeries since it was founded in 2006. For the initiative, he's expected to add to his 20 caps as Southgate's squad face Iran, the United States of America, and they take on Iran, the United States of America, and Wales and the football mundial. That's talking about Qatar. So that's the story for Bukayo Saka. He is contributing now, helping some of those children in Kano have their life back, and that's the story for Bukayo Saka. And we wish him all the best as for his humanitarian gestures towards his own people, and Kano State is benefiting from what Bukayo Saka, the Arsenal winger, is doing for his country. And moving away from that, let's to go to Abu Dhabi and talk about the Formula One. Yes, the Formula One is coming to a crescendo, and what a story has been for Max Verstappen this season in the Formula One, and he is doing all. He has proven himself a lot, and this season is certainly his season. And Red Bull's Max Verstappen won at the final race of the season in Abu Dhabi, and what a story it was for him winning in Abu Dhabi in style. The final race, he did that in style at the Abu Dhabi as Ferrari's Charles Leclerc beat the Dutchman's teammate Sergio Perez to secure second in the championship. And Charles Leclerc, who was Verstappen's title rival earlier this year before Ferrari's season imploded in a flood of errors and reliability failures, held off Sergio Perez on divergent strategies to take second place in that one. It may interest you to know that Sebastian Vettel's final race ended in disappointment, and the four-time champion bemoaning when he felt was a poor strategy from Aston Martin, and Verstappen men's winner was his 15th of 2022, extending the new record he has set this year for wins in a single season. So it's been a great season for that man. Talking about, we are talking about Max Verstappen in Formula One and what a story he has been for him this season. Hamilton, yes, Vettel took at the final point for 10th place after Lewis Hamilton missed this, retired from, and 4th place with 3 laps to go. And Hamilton's results means that he has finished a season without a win for the first time in his career, ending a record only he held. Verstappen's win was his 15th of 2022, extending the new record he has set this year for wins in a single season. And Vettel's 299th and final race fittingly ended the point, although it could and should have been so much better for the German after qualifying 5 places ahead of a teammate Lance Stroll, but finishing 2 places behind the Canadian in the race. And the 53-time race winners one-stopper strategy worked against him, but the point was at least some reward at the end of the weekend, strong with tribute for the retiring 35 years old. So that's the story for Formula One. It's been a season for Max Verstappen and an awful one for Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton will look to bounce back from that one. And now in tennis, former world number 1 Novak Djokovic defeated Casper Ruud for a record equaling 6th ATP Finals title. The 35-year-old Serbian overcame his Norwegian opponent 7-5, 6-3 in Turin, and that was on Sunday. And it may interest you to know that victory for Djokovic in this season-ending event, a year in which he was forced to miss 2 majors because of his reluctance to take a COVID-19 vaccination. And he last won an ATP Finals title in 2015 and has matched Roger Federer's mark. And Djokovic took the biggest paycheck in tennis worth, and it is worth $4,740,000 for going through the tournament unbeaten, having sealed the success with 1 of 9 aces in the match. He said that the 7-year wait for the title made the triumph even sweeter. I feel it feels deeply satisfying and at the same time a huge relief because of the circumstances that I have been through this year, situations earlier this year, and of course with Australia. He said that had an effect obviously on my start of the year. For the first several months I was trying to find that balance game-wise, but also mentally, in order to be able to come back to the court and find that tennis level that I need. I don't know what the future holds, but I know that what I hold in my mind is a huge hunger still to win trophies. Ruud, 23 years of age, made 2 poor errors to hand the 21-time major winner the break in the first set, and having won the opener, Djokovic then took control and broke his opponent's serve in the 4th game of the second set in that one. And Ruud continued to battle and forced the veteran into a 36-shot penultimate rally, but Djokovic was stronger and closed out the match with a powerful ace to get the victory 7-5, 6-3 against his opponent. It was also a successful day for Britain as It was a successful day for Britain as John Salisbury won at the men's doubles event with American partner Rayev Ram. The US Open men's doubles champion beat a Croatian pair of Nikola Mektic and Mate Pavic 7-6, 6-4 in their own encounter. You're watching Sports Today on ABS TV. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll talk about football news. We'll tell you about Karim Benzema, and then we'll serve you the fixtures of matches to be played in the World Cup match day 2 of the Football Mundial coming up in a short while. We'll be right back. Stick around. Welcome back to the show. Sports Today on ABS TV is what you are watching, and where we dissect sports and look at what is happening in the world of sports. We started the show by telling you about the Touch of Unity, which came to Anambra State, which in time came to Anambra State and was received by the #1 citizen of the state. We told you about the match by athletes and officials of Team Anambra as part of the ceremony for the Touch of Unity, which arrived at Anambra State. We probably told you that the Sports Writers Association of Nigeria paid a courtesy call to the chairman, Anambra State Sports Development Commission, who has promised to transform grassroots football. And we also told you that, yes, I told you about the Onitsha Unity Cup happening. We probably told you that the AIFL, the Anambra Independent Football League, has commenced, and some other stories that we told you about Formula 1, Max Verstappen wrapping up the season in style. We probably told you about Novak Djokovic winning and again the ATP, and then we probably told you about the Grand Prix. And then we told you about also Sunday Olisa, who was in the picture. We probably told you about Sadio Mane, who's injured and out of the World Cup, and many stories out there we told you also. And now time for us to jet into football matters once again. We will talk about the World Cup. Yes, the World Cup. It is on. It started yesterday, and there are actions for today at the World Cup. Well, let's tell you that France striker Karim Benzema has been ruled out of the World Cup after suffering an injury to his left thigh during training on Saturday in Doha. And the French Federation have confirmed the 2022 Ballon d'Or winner felt a strong pain in his thigh during a sprint towards the end of the training session. And after undergoing a magnetic resonance imaging test, it was confirmed that Benzema has suffered a muscle tear that will need 3 weeks of recovery time. And the 2022 World Cup will now be the first since 1978 not to feature the reigning Ballon d'Or winner. And France are beginning the defense of their World Cup title they won in 2016 when taking on Australia, coming up tomorrow, being Tuesday. Per FIFA rules, they will have until 24 hours before their first game to name a replacement for the squad. So they still have all the chance to make a replacement on that one. And still talking about World Cup, Eduardo Mendy has had to change his routine at the start of the World Cup. It won't be Sadio Mane that he meets first for the breakfast early morning during World Cup in Al Duhai complex, where the Senegalese squad is staying during the tournament. And Chelsea goalkeeper and the Bayern Munich forward have their shared habits and little routines before the African Cup of Nations that Senegal eventually won earlier this year. But they even flew to national team duty together by private jet. And like Mendy, every single player in the squad that will miss Mane in one way or the other. And the younger players see him as an icon and a model, a different kind of a relationship than the Bayern star has with Mendy or even Kalidou Koulibaly, and who considers Mane as more of a brother. But the former Liverpool star always has a word and sometimes for all the players, regardless of their status or experience. On Thursday, midfielder Pape Gueye summed up the mood in the Senegal camp regarding the absence of their number 10. He changes everything. He said every time he touches the ball, the opponent thinks there is a danger coming, and it feels some space for others. When he talks in the dressing room, everyone listens. He is irreplaceable. It explains why Senegal coach Aliou Cisse decided on Thursday, once Mane's withdrawal was announced, to officially keep Mane in the squad and not replace him, even take his name out of the squad list. And the players and staff agreed. There is even a possibility, depending on how long Senegal remain in the World Cup and how his rehabilitation goes following a knee surgical operation, that Mane could be to maybe come to support his teammates from the touchline we hear. And however, the corridors of Senegal's home base, a big residence located in suburb of Doha and built a few years ago for Handball World Cup, is still full of happiness, joy, and music happening. They will never lose that spirit, which is one of the greatest strengths. I wonder what the fan festa will be like out there in Qatar. And the African champions have brought a bigger delegation to Doha with 25 players and 29 additional staff. Each player Nigeria was also allowed to invite 2 guests for the duration of the World Cup, so they could see their families regularly and be more relaxed, while 150 fans have been invited by the Federation and will bring additional support in every game. And speaking of the game, Senegal's Group A opener is just around the corner and is happening today. And the squad, as he say, have switched their focus to prepare for Netherlands this Monday, and this might be the biggest game of the group and could have a massive impact on the rest of the competition already in terms of who advances. And the training sessions have been intense, and in Mane's absence there are several players with a point to prove we here. And starter with the leaders, it's fair to say that the likes of Mendy, Koulibaly and Idrissa Gueye are not having their best season, and emerging stars like Repin, Diatta, Ismail Assar and Nicolas Jackson, the latter, have been one off the La Liga's breakout this season at Villarreal and will bring a lot to the team. But Cisse, 46 years of age, who took over as manager in March 2015 and has just extended his deal until June 2024, has built a resilient mentality within his squad. So let's watch out and see what goes down today and the World Cup happening in Qatar. Well, let's tell you once again that Qatar, it has started yesterday. Qatar lost their first game too. They lost their first game to Ecuador by 2-0. And Valencia scored both goals. He scored in from the penalty spot in the 16th minute of the game, and also he scored in the 31st minute of the game. So let's look at the actions coming up today. We've talked about Senegal, their preparation for the World Cup, how they are trying to adjust to the fact that Sadio Mane is injured for this Soccer Mondial and will not be part of it, and what they are doing, the likes of Koulibaly, Idrissa Gueye, and with the support, the experience they will bring to the fold, and how they are going to ginger and spice themselves up to take up of the action. So Senegal is expected to take on Netherlands later today. That match is expected to start by 5 p.m. That's in Group A. And in Group B, there are 2 matches in Group B. Bukayo Saka should be in action today for England when they take on Iran. That match is happening by 2 p.m. later today, while the United States of America will take on Wales by 8 p.m. So just to recap once again, Senegal, Netherlands in Group A by 5 p.m. Or maybe I should start by telling you that the first match for the day is in Group B. England taking on Iran is a match to watch by 2 p.m. Looks like it's all England affair in this one. They should be getting the better of Iran. I don't see any surprises in that one. 2 p.m. the time for that one. And thereafter we'll have Senegal taking on Netherlands. That match is starting by 5 p.m. And the United States of America is expected to take on Wales. The match is happening by 8 p.m. So it's all about the Soccer Mondial, and let's watch and enjoy those ones, and then subsequent editions tomorrow and subsequent edition of our Sports Today. Be sure we'll be bringing you up to the very latest on what is happening in Qatar out there. We'll try and see if we can get 1 or 2 correspondents out there in Qatar to also put us through and get them live on the show to tell us what is happening out there in Qatar, from the fan fest, looking at the 5 African teams and every other thing associated with the World Cup. Well, that's about the size of the show this morning. Sports Today on ABS TV. Thanks a lot for being part of it. My name is Ike Nwokedi. From the entire team, I say have a blessed Monday and have a blessed week, and keep sporting. Bye-bye now.